Philosophy, from the Greek love of wisdom, is the pursuit of understanding our world. It is a discipline that has been cherished for centuries, evolving through the thoughts and writings of countless thinkers. It grapples with fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, and the mind. These questions are not just abstract, they touch on the very essence of our daily lives and decisions. It's a journey into the heart of what it means to be human. Through philosophy, we explore our beliefs, challenge our assumptions, and seek deeper truths. Logic, on the other hand, is the science of correct reasoning. It is the backbone of rational thought, providing structure to our arguments and clarity to our ideas. It provides us with the tools to evaluate arguments, identify fallacies, and construct sound conclusions. Without logic, our thoughts would be chaotic and our conclusions unreliable. Philosophy seeks to ask the big questions. It dares to ponder the mysteries of life, the universe, and everything in between. Logic gives us the framework to explore them with clarity and rigor. It ensures that our explorations are grounded in reason and evidence. Together, they form a powerful partnership in our quest for knowledge. This partnership is essential for progress in any field, from science to ethics. Imagine trying to solve a complex puzzle without knowing which pieces fit together. It would be an exercise in frustration and futility. Logic provides the rules, the guidelines for assembling those pieces into a coherent picture. It helps us see the connections and patterns that might otherwise be invisible. But philosophy is more than just assembling puzzles. It is about understanding the nature of the puzzle itself and questioning its very existence. It's about questioning the very nature of the puzzle itself. Why do we see the world the way we do? What are the underlying principles that shape our reality? Why are these pieces shaped this way? What is their purpose? And how do they fit into the grand scheme of things? What is the bigger image they are trying to reveal? Philosophy encourages us to look beyond the surface and seek the deeper meaning. And could there be different, equally valid ways to put them together? It opens our minds to the possibility of multiple perspectives and solutions, enriching our understanding of the world. Logic, at its core, is about clear thinking. It's the foundation upon which we build our understanding of the world. It's the ability to distinguish between valid and invalid arguments, to sift through the noise and find the signal, to identify fallacies in reasoning, such as ad hominem attacks or false dilemmas which can cloud our judgment, and to construct sound conclusions based on evidence. This is crucial in fields like science and law, where precision matters. Logic isn't about being right or wrong, but about thinking clearly and consistently. It's about fairness and consistency in our thought processes. In a world awash with information, the ability to think critically is more important than ever. We are constantly bombarded with data from all directions. We are bombarded with claims and counterclaims, opinions disguised as facts, and outright misinformation. This makes it challenging to discern the truth. Logic equips us with the tools to navigate this complex landscape, to make sense of the chaos and find clarity, to separate the wheat from the chaff. It helps us to filter out the irrelevant and focus on what truly matters. It allows us to analyze information objectively, to identify biases, and to question the sources of our information, and to arrive at conclusions based on evidence rather than emotion or intuition. This is essential for making informed decisions. While intuition and emotion have their place, logic provides a framework for rational inquiry, for testing our assumptions and refining our understanding. It's a tool that helps us to question, to explore, and to ultimately understand the world in a deeper, more meaningful way. The roots of logic can be traced back to ancient Greece, where philosophers like Aristotle laid the groundwork for this field of study. Aristotle's system of logic, known as syllogistic logic, provided a formal method for analyzing arguments. A syllogism is a type of logical argument that consists of three parts, two premises and a conclusion. For example, premise 1, all men are mortal. Premise 2, Socrates is a man. Conclusion, therefore Socrates is mortal. This simple example illustrates the power of deductive reasoning, where the conclusion follows logically from the premises. Aristotle's work laid the foundation for centuries of logical and philosophical inquiry, influencing thinkers from the medieval scholastics to modern-day mathematicians and computer scientists. Logic has evolved over the centuries, branching out into different types and systems. Two major branches are propositional logic and predicate logic. Propositional logic deals with the relationships between propositions, which are statements that can be either true or false. For instance, the sky is blue is a proposition. We can then use logical operators like and, or, and not to combine and manipulate these propositions. Predicate logic delves deeper, analyzing the internal structure of propositions. It introduces the concept of predicates, which are properties or relations that apply to individuals or objects. For example, in the proposition Socrates is a philosopher, philosopher is the predicate that applies to the individual Socrates. This allows for more complex and nuanced logical expressions. These systems of logic provide a rich and powerful toolkit for analyzing language, reasoning, and argumentation.
Formal logic focuses on the structure and form of arguments. It doesn't worry about the content of the argument, but instead focuses on whether the reasoning process is valid. There are two main types of formal logic: deductive and inductive. Deductive logic is when you start with general premises and move toward a specific conclusion. The conclusion is guaranteed to be true if the premises are true. Here's an example. All humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. On the other hand, inductive logic involves drawing general conclusions from specific observations. Unlike deductive logic, the conclusions are probable, not guaranteed. Example: every crow I've seen is black, therefore, all crows are black. Now let's explore informal logic. Informal logic concerns itself with the content of arguments and how we reason in everyday language. It includes two major forms: abductive and heuristic reasoning. Abductive reasoning is about forming the best possible explanation for a given set of observations. It's often used in situations where we don't have all the facts, but we need to make a decision or hypothesis. Example: the grass is wet. The sprinkler was on last night, therefore the grass was likely wet because the sprinkler was on. Lastly, heuristic reasoning is a mental shortcut that helps us solve problems and make decisions quickly, often based on experience or intuition. Example: you might assume that a friend who is always on time will be on time for an event based on past experience. This shortcut saves time but isn't always foolproof. A formal fallacy occurs when the structure of an argument is flawed. Even if the premises are true, the reasoning itself is invalid. Here's an example of a formal fallacy, known as affirming the consequent. If it rains, the ground will be wet. The ground is wet. Therefore it must have rained. While the premises are true, the conclusion doesn't necessarily follow. There could be other reasons for the ground being wet, such as someone watering the garden. An informal fallacy happens when an argument is flawed due to its content, language, or emotional appeal, rather than its structure. Example: ad hominem. Fallacy: person. A says we should raise taxes to support education. Person B responds, "Of course you'd say that, you're just a millionaire who doesn't care about others."
Section 5. Deduction and induction, two sides of the same coin. These two methods of reasoning are fundamental to our understanding and interpretation of the world around us. Deductive reasoning moves from general principles to specific conclusions. It starts with a theory or a general statement and examines the possibilities to reach a specific logical conclusion. If the premises are true and the reasoning is valid, the conclusion must be true. This method is often used in mathematics and logic, where certainty is paramount. Think of it like a watertight pipe. What you pour in one end, the premises, will inevitably flow out the other, the conclusion. This ensures a clear and direct path from start to finish. Inductive reasoning, on the other hand, moves from specific observations to general conclusions. It begins with detailed facts and moves towards a broader generalization. We observe patterns, make generalizations, and form hypotheses based on our experiences. This method is commonly used in scientific research and everyday decision-making. Inductive reasoning is about probability, not certainty. It allows us to make educated guesses and predictions based on the information we have. For example, if we observe that the sun has risen every morning for as long as we can remember, we might conclude that it will rise again tomorrow. This is a reasonable assumption based on past observations. This conclusion is highly likely but not guaranteed, as there's always a chance for unforeseen circumstances. Nature can be unpredictable and exceptions can occur. Both deductive and inductive reasoning play crucial roles in our understanding of the world. They complement each other, providing a balanced approach to knowledge and discovery. Section 6. Logic in the arena of philosophical debate. Logic is an indispensable tool in philosophical inquiry. It allows philosophers to analyze arguments rigorously, identify fallacies, and construct sound conclusions. Take, for instance, the enduring philosophical question of free will versus determinism. Determinists argue that every event, including our choices, is predetermined by prior causes. This raises questions about moral responsibility. If our actions are predetermined, can we truly be held accountable for them? Philosophers use logic to analyze the coherence and implications of these arguments. They examine the logical consequences of different positions, exploring potential contradictions and inconsistencies. Through rigorous logical analysis, philosophers try to shed light on these complex issues. Section 7. The limits of logic, where reason meets intuition. While logic is a powerful tool, it has its limitations. Not all philosophical questions lend themselves to purely logical analysis. Questions about ethics, aesthetics, and the meaning of life often involve subjective values, emotions, and intuitions that go beyond the reach of formal logic. For example, logic alone cannot tell us what constitutes a good life or what is truly beautiful. These are matters of personal belief, cultural context, and individual experience. Logic can help us clarify our thinking, but it cannot provide definitive answers to questions that lie outside the realm of objective truth. In these domains, intuition, empathy, and personal reflection play equally important roles. Section 8. Paradoxes, the mind-bending puzzles. Paradoxes, those fascinating logical puzzles that seem to contradict themselves, highlight both the power and the limits of logic. One famous example is the liar's paradox. This statement is false. If the statement is true, then it must be false, and if it's false, it must be true. Paradoxes like this force us to confront the limits of language and the self-referential nature of thought. While they may not have easy solutions, paradoxes push the boundaries of logic, challenging us to think in new and creative ways. They remind us that logic is not a static system, but an evolving tool for exploring the complexities of thought and language.